than to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Hey, what's up everybody and welcome in. This is FST Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Stryker, his name's Joe Pisapia, and this is the place if you want to dominate, if you want to make money. It doesn't matter what your record is, season-long fantasy managers. DFS, we're still cashing here. Straight up wagering, we've got you covered. Of course, Joe Pisapia is the man, the author of the Fantasy Black Book. He is here as he is each and every week. And before we dive into an exciting week of professional football, just a quick reminder if you're new or perhaps you're lapsed. At SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles. Do yourself a favor. Follow along. A lot of information coming. Joey P., my man, where would you like to begin today? What's up?
Oh, we got to begin with an incredible game Thursday night. I mean, I want to talk about it a little bit because in the snow globe, I mean, the NFL films footage from Thursday night, I know for Steelers fans, it's still a little sore. I went on Scotty Farrell show on Friday, and I brought up the Steelers and Browns for like a second, and he got very upset. And I understand he's a very emotional guy, but if you're a fan of football, man, that was a fun second half of that game. The snow swirling, Jameis Winston quotes for days. We should just mic him 24 hours a day because nobody knows what kind of crazy crap is going to come out of his mouth at any given moment, and it's glorious. And now all of a sudden, that AFC North looks a little bit different. If the Ravens handle their business this week on Monday night, all of a sudden they become a team that's 8-4, and all of a sudden now things are getting a little close. I think at the top of that division, they're 8-4. The Steelers are now 8-3, and obviously there's still a bye yet to come. And if you look closely at the Steelers' upcoming schedule, I know we're going to talk about this more in the show too. A lot of games against those individual opponents. A big game against the Eagles. That defense playing much better, but Jameis Winston took that team on his back, got a big win there in division. And it just goes to show you also those short week in division games, Matt, they always tend to throw people for a loop. I remember all week on our shows on Betting Pros, I kept saying, I got a bad feeling about this game, weird feeling. I don't want to invest in it. I just want to watch it. I think it'll be fun. And sure enough, it turned out to be just that. So how much do you put into the fact that when these teams put their rosters together, they're putting their rosters together to play the teams in their division, and how significant that is, as opposed to, some of these out of conference games you get sometimes that get a little wild. which you saw last night on Thursday night, really is something people should pay more attention to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. It's something that a lot of fantasy minds and managers really don't take into account is how is the team upon which your player sits structured? And I understand it's an entirety of season for fantasy, but several pro players have said, controversially enough, we're not playing for the fantasy players, we're playing for real out here. But Joe brings up a good point. So think about some of these teams. I don't want to say the Ravens because that would be an easy thing, but you could take a team like the Steelers at the beginning of the season. I don't think anyone knew heads or tails of where we were going come week 3. Now you're trying to find fantasy viability and wagering viability. And to Joe's point, when you see these matchups where it's in division or coming off a short week or something unique like that, you have to keep that in mind for both elements. So I like where your head is so far, so early today. What I want to talk about is some of the quarterback movement that's happening and some of the personnel that has been said goodbye, some that's being welcomed in. How's this going to affect our day?
Yeah, definitely some changes at the quarterback position, maybe even more coming in New York if you believe some of the rumors swirling about the Jets, which I don't. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going on the IR. If we think that, his ego is bruised. It might be a deep, deep bruise. I don't know if that necessarily warrants an IR stint. We'll see. But the Giants did cut bait with Daniel Jones this week, and also Joe Douglas gone as GM of the Jets. So lots of changes going on in the New York football universe, and rightfully so. Things have not really gone very well. But, with Joe Douglas, it's a little bit of good and bad because although the record, as you could see, 30 wins, 64 losses under his regime, not good. Douglas is the guy that did draft Breece Hall. He did draft Garrett Wilson. He did make some pretty good moves to help assemble a very good defense that did play well when they had a football coach at the top. But, at the ultimate end of things, they took a gamble on Zach Wilson. They love Zach Wilson. He turned out to be the wrong answer. Aaron Rodgers turned out to also be the wrong answer. And if you don't get quarterback right in this league, you're not getting anything right in this league. And speaking of that, I give you Daniel Jones, ladies and gentlemen, a guy that, had a lot of questions coming out of Duke and then had a lot of questions about his draft stock and really never answered those questions. He kind of got hot at the right time, got the big contract extension, and good for Daniel Jones. I mean, he's going to sit on, $81 million guaranteed. He's probably made $100 million at least in his career. That's pretty good. That's a good time for him. And now the question is, after you look at the stats from this year, who is going to give him a shot to be a backup or maybe compete for a job next year? And I think someone will. He's still very young. He is a mobile enough quarterback too, which a lot of teams favor. So Brian Daboll's been a guy that has gotten a lot of credit for making Josh Allen a thing and working with him. And for whatever reason, things just did not work out. But if you look at the history of Daniel Jones, when he had Saquon Barkley and a real run game that was pretty strong, the numbers were okay. They were competitive. And whenever you strip Saquon Barkley, a great player, out of that offense, all of a sudden they weren't. So if he goes to an offense with a lot of great players around him, there's a chance that Daniel Jones has a second chapter in his career. It's not difficult to fathom. I also, I see people saying, well, let's put him with the Raiders. I don't think his personality really fits the Raiders. I do think his personality fits one spot where there's an aging quarterback that he could work with maybe for a year. And they've got a great football coach who understands offense and understands quarterbacks, and it's Sean McVay. I think the Rams will be a fascinating landing spot for him because the Rams are a team that's not going to be in a spot to draft a quarterback in the first round this year. So why not take a shot on Daniel Jones? Los Angeles could not be the polar opposite of the media in New York. Nobody's going to be on him. Nobody's going to care. There's not going to be any pressure. And Matthew Stafford probably has 1 year left for him to kind of go through. I don't see him leaving Los Angeles necessarily. So what do you think of Daniel Jones potentially signing with the Rams for the league minimum, hanging out there, learning the system, growing maybe under Matthew Stafford and maybe learning a thing or two and having a whole different set of circumstances? Maybe he could revive his career. Is the Rams where you think he ends up, or do you have a different place in mind for Daniel Jones?
I know the rule in improv is to keep the train going but I kind of want to, exactly. Joe knows it, master thespian. But I kind of want to stop the train here, screeching halt. You mentioned that this young man is still mobile, went to Duke University, and is sitting on $100 million. Let me be the voice of reason and say, go do something else. All kidding aside. With that said, and that fatherly advice, let's talk sports. Yeah, it's a great landing spot. I understand what you're saying, and I think that from the fantasy and wagering perspective, that would be a lot of fun. We had joked before the show had come on the air and we saw on social media, maybe he goes to the Cowboys, learns a system and beats the Giants on Thanksgiving. But all of these things, you start to think of teams that really need a quarterback. I mean, does he fit in Tennessee? Does he fit in, as you mentioned, in Las Vegas? But overall, I keep coming back to this sound mind, sound body. You got $100 million, kid. You went to a great school. You can still walk and talk. Go do something else. And I'd like to have that mindset when I go into my wagering as well, Joe.
Yeah, he ain't walking away. I would be very surprised. I just would, and I also don't think
Am
it's
I
going to be a
wrong,
team that oh, no. You and I would walk away. Well, listen, when that guaranteed money kicks in around here, and they cut us, Matt and I will be out somewhere on a yacht, hanging out there, pretending to fish, but not really fishing because we really don't care. So we'll just be out there, sunning ourselves, telling stories of the days gone
yachts.
by. I'll be smoking a cigar. Matt will be smoking something else, perhaps. I don't know. But what I will say is that Daniel Jones will end up somewhere. I don't think he ends up with a team that is going to change head coaches in the offseason. Like, I think you're looking for an organization that says, all right, maybe this is an intriguing long-term project here where we put a year or two into this guy and maybe we could turn him around. It's got to be a team that, again, it's not going to be a team that it has a 2 or 3 wins. Like, I don't see that being the team that takes Daniel Jones. But I think somebody will. At least as a quality backup. And it's going to be a regime that's going to have a coach returning next year because a new coach is going to come in and want to do different things. Also, Monday Night Football is going to be fun this week. We're going to have the Har Bowl. That's right. Jim versus John. We saw these two guys go at the Super Bowl a few years ago. I don't know. I did not. I'm sure it's a holdover from back in the day when they went to the Super Bowl. But it sounds fun. And that's going to be a fun football game, too. We're going to see the brothers go out there and battle it out Monday night. And we're going to see some fantasy players boom. When we come back, we'll tell you who right after this on FST.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Stryker, Joe Pisapia, Cool Hand Luke, TD Jake behind the glass. This is the crew. We bring it to you each and every week. from what we understand at SportsGrid TV, a lot of you are doing really well. Thanks so much. Keep reaching out, keep talking to us. We're going to bring you up and mention you on the air. Let's keep that moving here. One of the reasons everyone is cashing is because of the Fantasy Boom segment. FST Fantasy Booms. Joe, you've been identifying these players set to break out ahead of their games today, and we've been hitting. So let's start here. We have a quarterback against a seemingly soft secondary, and I don't think people, when they look at the team itself, think that the secondary can be had, but let's talk.
No, they can be had all day, all evening. It doesn't matter when you're playing the Ravens. They can be had. And Justin Herbert is QB 16 on the year for fantasy purposes, but he is a top 5 quarterback option this week. The expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros have him there, and rightfully so. You're seeing them start to open things up in the last few weeks, and that's been a good thing here. 297 yards against the Cincinnati Bengals, another secondary that's not very good, and now they get another matchup against Baltimore, also not very good. And if you look at the numbers here coming out of the bye, against the Denver Broncos defense on the road, only 237 yards for Justin Herbert. However, against Arizona, 349, New Orleans, 279, Cleveland, 282. Again, different game script against Tennessee, only 164, but then back up to 297 against Baltimore. We're going to talk more about his over later, but Justin Herbert, a guy that if you're looking for a quarterback to stream this week, because you've got bye weeks coming up right now, this is the guy to get. And if you're looking ahead to the schedule too, Atlanta, another team you can throw on, then KC, a tougher matchup, but then you get Tampa, another team that's given up a ton of yards through the air this year. So if you're looking ahead here, Justin Herbert is a guy that can help get you into the playoffs and through that first round, I think. So Bo Nix, Herbert, those are a couple quarterbacks that, weren't drafted in single quarterback leagues, and rightfully so. But between the injuries to guys like Dak Prescott and some of the play that's been a little underwhelming, this is the situation you're in right now. And there's been some guys that have really performed in the last 6 weeks as QB1s that you need to pay more attention to. Some of those starts that I mentioned, by the way, he has finished in the last 4 weeks as a QB1, QB9, 12, 8, and 8 back-to-back weeks. So this is a guy that's really starting to put together this offense, starting to get a little bit more comfortable in it. And I think, the way you attack those Baltimore Ravens is very simple. It's not run the football. We know Jim wants to run the football against his brother John. They want to run the football all day long. But I think Herbert right now, you're going to see a lot more airing out of the football against the Baltimore Ravens because that is how you attack them. And they don't have an answer for it. So Herbert is definitely a guy you want to get in DFS lineups. Look at the overs. We'll talk more about that in hour 2. But Herbert has a great matchup this week, and I think he's going to put up some big stats, maybe even push to that 300-yard mark again like last week.
Ooh. All right, great stuff as always, Joe. You make us excited for the game. Let's keep the train moving here. A lot of people have been cashing in on anytime touchdowns coming from the Detroit Lions backfield. It's usually one of 2 players. Let's talk about one on the road at Indianapolis.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, a great matchup here against Indianapolis. A team that's going to struggle with running backs who catch the football, and that's what Jahmyr Gibbs does. He is sitting on the year as RB6, one of our favorite investments at the turn. We talked about him. We talked about Derrick Henry. Like, those are the values at running back as opposed to some of the guys that were going in that first round that we just didn't feel great about. He's got 8 touchdowns on the year, too, from a rushing standpoint, 1 receiving. So the notion that David Montgomery just gets all the touchdowns and Jahmyr Gibbs can't get any is fictitious. And again, the secondary of the Colts has not played very well this year. If you look at what he's been doing, he's just getting the workload, right? He is good for probably around a dozen carries today, and he's probably good for, 3 or 4 targets as well. And that volume usually returns, as do the touchdowns too. I mean, this guy has a touchdown in every game but 1 in the last 5 weeks. So he has been very consistent, and a matchup again against the Indianapolis Colts where you could see Anthony Richardson and the Colts putting up a fight. And if you do get that, that's really good for Jahmyr Gibbs, especially because then it's not as much David Montgomery running out clock at the end of the game. You're getting a little bit more competitive game. So you want to see the Anthony Richardson that looked confident and comfortable, as he said, for the first time in his NFL career, that he really felt comfortable on the road last week against those Jets. And maybe he carries that confidence back home with him. And maybe this is a little bit more competitive of a game for the Detroit Lions than what they got last week. But one thing is for sure, Jahmyr Gibbs in a good spot, good cost in DFS, but I think he's in store for another good game here, another touchdown as well. So if you want to bet that anytime touchdown score from a fantasy perspective, he's in a really good spot for it today.
All right. A lot of people chiming in on social media. They want to go back to this Charger-Baltimore Raven matchup. You mentioned Justin Herbert being the play, but someone's got to catch the ball. Is there a receiver on the Chargers that stands out for a big fantasy boom today?
Yeah, it's Lad McConkey, who is questionable coming into today, but as of right now, we'll get you updated. It seems like he is going to play. He leads the team with 21% target share, and that's what's most important here. You want the guy who's going to get the volume. And going into the season, we talked a lot about Lad McConkey and what we thought he could do in those PPR leagues, kind of be like a Wes Welker kind of player to emerge over time for Justin Herbert. And that's exactly what he is starting to look like. You saw 9 targets last week against Cincinnati. He got 6 of them for 123. Now, touchdowns have been a little tougher to come by, and that's understandable. He's only got 4 on the season, but we're talking full point PPR leagues here, and he's got a chance to go well over 15 points today against Baltimore. As long as he's in on Monday night, it's going to be a good situation here for Lad McConkey. So that would be the guy, again, as of right now, everything trending in the right direction for him. Fingers crossed. If not, then you might have to pivot to a Quentin Johnson or even a Josh Palmer potentially. But McConkey definitely set up well this week.
All right, folks are excited about the wide receiver talk, so let's keep that conversation going here. Is there another wide receiver in a different game that isn't Chargers and Baltimore that people can expect to boom?
Yeah, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba's finally turned the corner. The last 2 weeks here, you've seen him finish as wide receiver 1 in week 9, and then he had the bye, and then wide receiver 12. He has seen 24 targets in his last 2 games, so I think the Tyler Lockett age is starting to show. You push him off to the side a little bit. You've seen him go over 100 yards receiving in those 2 games. And this is a huge game here against the Arizona Cardinals, who are in first place in this division. Seattle coming off a huge win against San Francisco. So a big in-division game here where Seattle should be feeling confident. DK Metcalf back and healthy. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of attention from that defense, which means Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to get a lot of opportunity. And I think you're going to see him get peppered with targets. So JSN, after a very frustrating first half of the season, very up and down, very boom or bust, is starting to find that consistency in this offense that, again, is a new offense. So it takes time, especially for young players, to figure things out. And it looks like he's turned that corner, and he might be a league winner when all is said and done. Now, speaking of busts, there are some guys that might be looking on the downside of week 12. We'll tell you who. We come back right after this.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim to make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today, where the conversations we have off the air bleed and spill on the air because we're all part of the same family here. So now it's time for Fantasy Busts. Can't really tell you what we were talking about beforehand, but it pretty much falls in line here. It's basically just who's going to fall on their face here, man? Who's just going to not make it work? We have to avoid these pitfalls. Joey P, we now have included Pat behind the glass to our, it's getting cramped back here, to our team.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about the fantasy bust. Who's going to fall flat on their face? Who do we stay away from? From whom do we stay away? Sorry, Pat. Sorry, Jake.
The English professor
guys.
here.
I'll be over here.
Oh,
Sorry,
my goodness.
Joe.
From whom? Yeah, I can't tell you guys after the show the kind of notes I get. Matt corrects the papers or the show sheet and things like that. There's all these red inks and explain yourself better. What do you mean by this? Circling in his little show your work. I'll show you my work. All right, let's talk about J.K. Dobbins here. As much as I love some of the Charger pieces, I don't love J.K. Dobbins this week. And why? Well, it's twofold. Because first of all, he's going against that defense that has been so good against the run this year. The Baltimore Ravens, 852 rushing yards allowed. That's it. The only team to give up less has been the Minnesota Vikings with 744. So they are right at the top, number 2 in the league in terms of the least amount of rushing yards given up. And that's for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're good up front. Number 2, they're bad in the secondary. So people just don't even care. You start pivoting away from it right away, and you just start attacking the.
Okay. Looks like we live in a world where things just happen. But hey, listen, so Joe is talking about this Chargers-Baltimore matchup and understanding how to attack the fact that they have the weak secondary. So you want to think in your mind that you would want to try to have a run option. But Joe, you negate that. You think that the Chargers have only one option here, right?
Yeah, the option is to throw the football. That's it.
Right.
Like I said, we're trying to look at how you go against this team, and that's how you do it. And you see teams start to pivot away from the run anyway, not only because they can't do it against the Ravens, but because you can do anything you want against the secondary, basically. I mean, and that's the whole point. So the other factor here with J.K. Dobbins is also the return of Gus Edwards, who is starting to get some of that workload. So if you are losing some of your workload to Gus Edwards, even if it's 30% of it, right? It might not sound like a lot, but that's enough in a bad matchup to really make it a terrible matchup. I'm not saying J.K. Dobbins can't have a good game. You can talk about this Baltimore revenge nonsense if you want to talk about that with the running backs of this game. I don't really think it's a thing. But I do believe that it's going to be a tough week for him. It's hard not to start him because of the buys and because of running back injuries. But Gus Edwards also has some goal line love too. And you start taking away carries, you start taking away goal line opportunities, you start taking away fantasy points. So all of that combined makes for a really tough sell for me for J.K. Dobbins. So I'm going to be fading for him, but you could also look for unders for him too. And I know in hour 2, go look at fantasy props is another guy we're going to talk about too. I know overs are sexy and fun, but unders make a lot of money.
No, that's a great point to end it, and I like that we're going to be talking about that later on, so hang on to that. All right, this next one here may seem like a, duh kind of play here, but you explain why this next receiver is potentially a bust this afternoon.
Yeah, look, Calvin Ridley's had a few good games here of late. 2-touchdown game against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. Last week, just 4 catches, though, for 58. This week against Houston, tough corner matchup for him. So I'm just going to fade based on that. When we're talking about tough corner matchups and subpar quarterback play, that's typically not a good recipe for fantasy points. So Calvin Ridley is a guy that, again, you might have to start as a wide receiver 3 this week because of the bodies that are out there. But to be honest with you, I think there's a lot better starts available and guys you want to take a shot on that might have higher upsides than Ridley in this week.
All right, with the time remaining, let's hear Joey P's mastermind thoughts on a highly touted quarterback at the start of the season against a surprising team. Joe?
Caleb Williams right now, and I was tough on Caleb Williams coming into the league. You know that. We talked about it in the shows. I like Daniels more. And since the London games, he has not thrown a touchdown. Now, he hasn't thrown an interception either, so I guess you could look on the bright side of life. But I'm going to focus on the reality of, in 4 weeks as a quarterback, you don't throw a touchdown. That's absurd. And I know we've changed coordinators, and I know there were times where they looked better last week, and this was a game they should have won last week when you consider how close it was. All you do is kick the field goal at the end. But the inefficiencies, the holding the ball too long, the trying to run around and make 5,000 plays and running backwards, it's just getting old real fast. So there's no discipline here with Caleb Williams. I don't see that changing this season. We'll see what the next regime of the Chicago Bears looks like if they can get Caleb Williams right. Now, if you want to talk about talent and ability, sure. If we want to talk about the mental state and the awareness to play this game at this level, I don't know yet. And that's a real question. From a fantasy perspective this week, he is much closer to the Tommy DeVitos and Cooper Rushes than he is to the Justin Herberts of the world by far. So understand that in Superflex leagues. You might not want to be rolling out Caleb Williams. We return for FST. We'll be right back after this.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Stryker, Joe Pisapia, and an incredible, although crazy team behind the glass bringing you this show. Boy, oh boy, we've been having fun in the breaks. Let's bring it forward here. Actually, all the boys were talking about running backs and how important they are and how a team can be competitive if you do it right. Sometimes you just run teams to death, as Joe put it right before we were coming back in. It sets up our DFS conversation perfectly. We'll start with running backs. We start with Saquon Barkley, who's listed at 10K this week. So let's just start right there. Let's start building rosters and lineups. More than one, please. Joe, your thoughts on the running backs for week 12.
Yeah, I love Saquon. I mean, how do you not? But 10K is a lot. So I mean, it just becomes a really difficult situation to roster anybody else. You know, he's so high up on that trough, and deservedly so. Coming off a game where he had 146 rushing yards against Washington, 2 touchdowns. I mean, come on, man. The guy's just been incredible. I also saw that they added the backwards leap to Madden, which is pretty cool. I gotta say, like that's a very cool thing to be adding to the game. But Saquon, again, I think you have to fade him. Now, Christian McCaffrey at $500 less, I think a lot of people will be fading, which is really interesting because with Brandon Allen at quarterback and Purdy out, you're going to see a ton of Christian McCaffrey in this game, like maybe more than we've seen all year. So that is also something to keep in mind. He might be an automatic fade based on price and based on that fact. But if he has a huge monstrous game, and let's say he carries them to a victory over the Green Bay Packers, which I don't think is an absurd thing. I think I have called them the 49ers going back to August. I have said fade the 49ers every chance you get. But this could be one of those perfect storms here where everybody counts them out. They're coming off a terrible loss at home, blah, blah, blah. But let's be honest, the Green Bay Packers snuck away with a win last week. And the Green Bay Packers have not looked like world beaters. And they've got injuries of their own on the defensive side, like Alexander. They got a ton of stuff that they're dealing with too. Or life is not perfect for the Green Bay Packers right now. And I think people are overrating this a little bit. I'd be on the 49ers side with the points in this game, to be honest with you. But Christian McCaffrey, because of that salary, becomes a really interesting, pivot in the sense of a premium guy. Joe Mixon has been really solid, obviously, for the Houston Texans. It's amazing to think that they got him for a 7th-round pick. I mean, talk about a win for this organization. Jahmyr Gibbs, who I mentioned earlier, I think this is the best return on investment, high-end price, but not ridiculously premium. Kareem Hunt, Pacheco's not back yet. I keep telling everybody, the guy's coming off a broken leg. This whole notion that
how sobering your analysis is. No, you're right. No, dude.
But this is, people are annoyed at me because I tell the truth about things, right? They get pissed off because, like, sometimes the truth isn't sunny. The guy had a broken leg. Do you think he's going to come back and get like a full workload and 20 carries? Like, do you have any idea how the human body works and what the NFL is about? And people tell me, "Oh man, I'm worried about Kareem Hunt this week." Really? You're not worried about Kareem Hunt this week? I don't know why you're worried about Kareem Hunt this week, because it's a terrific matchup. It's a matchup you want to be playing. I don't understand it at all. But yeah, I mean, against Carolina, one of the worst teams against a run. I mean, you've got to play Kareem Hunt this week. They should have a lead in this game, so you should see a ton of volume. And I know he's not the most efficient guy, but Kareem Hunt, Tyrone Tracy, Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, you're going to see a lot of Tracy. We'll get you updated on Malik Neighbors here a little later in the show. But Tracy, another guy, 6,700, a very good value. So Gibbs, Hunt, Tracy, I think that's where I want to live this week in the DFS running back group. But I mean, it's great. And people are like, they're so surprised. I can't believe Isaiah Pacheco's not back yet. Really? You really think at any point in time you're going to see him get 25 carries in a game? He didn't get that when he was healthy. Stop it. It's just ridiculous. Stop it.
All right, so if we're going to save on running back, I'm wondering if Joe is going to be inclined to spend at wide receiver. And that category, Amon-Ra St. Brown tops the list at 9,500. He's followed by Mike Evans at 8 even. Then it goes to DK Metcalf at 7,900, and then it incrementally drops down. Jamison Williams, 6,800 is where it bottoms out. Joe, talk to us about building with wide receivers this week.
Yeah, Mike Evans is interesting. He's around a top 10 guy. He's 11 right now in the ECR, and he has enormous touchdown equity. So on the half-point PPR side of sites like FanDuel, you want to play him. On the DK side, a little trickier, but at 8K.
At 8K is... Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say at 8K, Mike Evans is basically an automatic touchdown, I think, this week, especially in the half PPR. So you want to look for him. And then the full PPR, it's a little trickier, but again, the touchdown equity is there, and you don't have Chris Godwin. But I do think that, with Evans, this is a kind of a sad thing. We're looking at a year where he's going to finally break that streak of 1,000-yard receiving seasons. It's not going to happen. Like even this year, early in the year, he's only got 335 yards total this year. So he hasn't been a big yardage guy. He's been a big touchdown guy. And that's great for fantasy, but in terms of like those big splash games, you got to be a little bit careful of that. DK Metcalf, we talked about 7,900. But JSN at 7,500 is cheaper, and I think might end up pacing him. It's possible in this game. In that same contest, which could go well over the total, I think you're going to see a fair amount of points in that game. Marvin Harrison Jr. and this team returning off a bye at 7,200. And Jameson Williams at 6,800 too, another guy that I think you could put in there. And you've seen the dynamic he's added to this offense. You saw everybody last week for Detroit. I mean, everybody had 100 yards. I think you had 78 yourself last week. So it was just an incredible thing. I told you, Dan Campbell does not understand the way the gas pedal works. He doesn't understand that there's a brake. He doesn't understand you can let off the gas. He doesn't get it. He is going to put up points. As long as he can put up points, they're just going to continue to do what they do. So being involved in Detroit and Indianapolis, also a game from a DFS standpoint, I think could be beneficial.
All right, I love it. So that begs the question, if we're all over Detroit, who's throwing the football there? The indoor cat, Jared Goff. Let's move to quarterbacks here. Jalen Hurts is at the top of the list at 9,300. Then Goff checks in at 8,500. Bo Nix, welcome to the party, my man, or at least for the rest of the world, welcome to the party. 8 even. We'll have that conversation. Joe, is the quarterback section where we're going to find our value, or are we going to have to pay up here?
Well, there is some value. And if you told me at the beginning of the year that Bo Nix would break 8K on a DFS roster, I would say, what is it, like a standalone single game we're looking at? Like, how does this even work?
Thursday.
It's a Thursday night football game, and he's coming off a really good game, or they're playing the worst team in the league. But you got to give Bo Nix credit, man. I mean, the guy's putting up fantasy points and, again, mobile quarterbacks. Now, I'd rather pivot down from that. Kyler Murray's very interesting off the bye against Seattle. Again, can this Arizona team continue to stay at the top of the standings? Geno Smith in that game, too, who, one of the leaders in passing yards this year. You've got to pay attention to that. You did mention Jared Goff. He is expensive, though, at $8,500. So I think in cash games, you could play Jared Goff. In tournaments, I think you need a little bit more leg room in terms of some of the budget that you have. So Kyler Murray at 78, Geno at 74. And then right in between, Anthony Richardson at 7,500 is also very intriguing because of the rushing equity he brings. So whether it looks good or not, it doesn't matter. All that matters is he going to rush for 50 yards with a touchdown? And if he does, then all the passing stuff is it's just moot. It doesn't really matter. So Anthony Richardson should not be overlooked just because it's theoretically a bad matchup. Maybe he's turnover pro. We could talk about all of that potentially, but at the same time, you got to talk about the rushing equity and the rushing touchdowns equity he brings. So that is huge. So Murray, Richardson, Smith, I think that's where I want to live this week at quarterback.
All right. Sounds like a law firm. Hopefully none of us will need it. Let's go to the tight ends here with the time that we have remaining, because at the top is Brock Bowers. We're going to have a great stat and perhaps a wagering clue on Brock Bowers in a little while later on in the show, but he sits at 7,500 here. Behind him is some guy named Travis Kelce at 7,200. And then there's Cade Otton at 6,600. That right there is the middle spot. Joe, take it from there. What do you like in the tight end position for DFS in week 12?
Well, it's hard not to like Brock Bowers, but again, the touchdown equity is not always there. Cade Otton at 66, that is a great value return on investment, right? You got to pay up a little bit, but you're getting exactly what you want here, which is volume. He's on the field a ton. He's got targets, and Mike Evans being back actually helps. So although Evans, will maybe pilfer a little touchdown equity, having another weapon in this offense is good. And Cade Otton has been getting all of the Chris Godwin work there in the middle of the field, and that's been a very positive thing for him. And then paying all the way down for Jatavian Sanders, who has been a tight end one. The last 2 weeks he's played has been very sneaky good. He's on the waiver wire. We're going to mention him again in an hour or two on the waiver wire segment. He's going to come up again. Just 4,900. He has some touchdown equity. And the Chiefs have not been great against tight ends this year. They've given up a lot of fantasy points to tight ends. So Jatavian Sanders, Cade Otton, those are my two most popular ones this week. And also, if you've been injured in an accident, call us at Murray, Richardson, and Smith. We can help you get money. Call us now. We're waiting.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was only going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today with a wild crew where one guy is doing air drums on the intro back into the show. Another guy is talking about the frequency of music and dial tones. I have no idea what's happening. Let's rein it all in here and go to FST by the numbers. So, folks, as you know, at SportsGrid and at SportsGrid TV are our social media handles. We've been listening to you guys, and you're loving the stats. And the stats are really informing a lot of our wagering success, a lot of our DFS and season-long fantasy success. So let's devote a whole segment here to by the numbers. Joe, our team has put together a fantastic grouping of stats and information. So let's make it entertaining, but informative as well. And with that, Joey P.
Yes, entertaining, informative. That is the show. That is what we do around these parts. All right, so let's talk about targets, because we always talk about volume being king in fantasy football. And the more targets you get, the more opportunities you get to have fantasy points, even if the quarterback play isn't very good. And some of these guys you're going to see with the most targets don't all have good quarterback play. So you see Garrett Wilson leading the league, 108 targets. Just keep throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson. So anybody that wanted to get rid of Garrett Wilson when he wasn't performing as well, or they were disappointed, and Devontae Adams has come in. Oh no, he's never going to see a ball again. Well, that's a lie, because Garrett Wilson has 108 targets on the year. CeeDee Lamb has 106 right behind him, as we will all hope. And then Jamar Chase, the only other guy above the century mark with 100. And despite missing some time this year, Malik Neighbors surprisingly at 94, or maybe unsurprisingly, he has seen a ton of targets this year. However, if you look at where they are in terms of fantasy return on investment, right, all these guys have been pretty good, right? Except that there's one guy that not only is over 200 fantasy points, he's over 250 fantasy points. Everybody else is under 200. They're in the 190-ish mark or 175 here for CeeDee Lamb, 171 in full PPR for Garrett Wilson. If you go down to Neighbors, 139. Again, he did miss some time. But Jamar Chase has 251 full PPR points already. 251. The other guys are at 175, and Jamar Chase is at 251. Now, the reason is Joe Burrow. So although you might love a wide receiver and you might love the targets, at the end of the day, it's the quarterback play, stupid, that makes the difference, right? Like, that's what it is. Like
wait a minute, is my wife doing the show?
Yeah, but that's what it is. Not you. But we always have this notion, right? It's like, well, a great wide receiver doesn't matter. It does matter. It's the difference between a great wide receiver having 175 fantasy points and 251. Now, that is a massive gap. That's an 80-point gap. And that is, I think, what we have to, once again, come back next year. And when we talk about the offensive ecosystems in the Black Book, we talk about best practices, being involved in offenses that have continuity at coach and quarterback, good quarterback play. All of that matters. And I understand why people panicked in the marketplace with Justin Jefferson, right? Well, okay, how's the quarterback play going to be? How's Sam Darnold going to go? But Sam Darnold's been serviceable this year. And there's been plenty of times where, some of the other guys, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, not been serviceable. So you can throw all the targets you want. At the end of the day, it's the quarterback play. And the guy who's number 2 is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has 191 full PPR points right now. So there you go. Quarterback play matters just as much as the talent at wide receiver. And just a friendly reminder that when you go in next year, keep those things in mind when you start bidding on guys or drafting guys, that all of that does count at the end of the day.
Does anyone else feel uncomfortable when a guy like Joe says, friendly reminder? It's almost like it's not a reminder, and it's in no way friendly at all. Hey, Joe, business idea. What do you think about this? A small little cafe. The food is amazing, but the staff is just rude as all heck. They throw you a burger. Here you go. Here's your burger. Jerk your egg.
I've seen this.
Stupid.
This exists. It's like burger places and stuff where they come and they insult you at the table. Like you try to pay them and then like they throw the card back at you. And it's a whole thing where people go specifically and the waiter insults you from the entire time, start to finish. I'd like to work there at least for a day. I think that would be fun.
Okay, now, can you do this next segment on this next stat?
While
maybe
you
work there.
So we can go? Yeah, sure.
No, maybe it's welcome to the FST Cafe. Here's your waiter, Joe. Take it away, Joe. What do you have?
All right, Jalen Hurts is the next guy. I know last week we did a deep dive on him with some fun stats, but we got even more Jalen Hurts stats for you. He's the first quarterback now in NFL history with 10-plus rushing touchdowns in 4 straight seasons. And I'm going to take the L on this one. I was skeptical that he could reach last year's rushing touchdown total because it was such a high number. It was a record. He and Josh Allen broke it the same year. And typically there's regression there. And then losing Jason Kelsey, I thought would matter a little bit more, but you know what? That offensive line is still great. And I also was concerned, well, Saquon Barkley's around. Maybe you're going to get a little less out of Jalen Hurts, keep him upright a little bit more, put him in bubble wrap. No, it's been Jalen Hurts scoring touchdowns. I have bet the anytime touchdown on Jalen Hurts the last 3 weeks in a row. And let's just say things are going well. That defense is playing well for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts combination with Saquon Barkley. I know AJ Brown managers aren't loving life right now, but Jalen Hurts has been spectacular. So speaking of Saquon, I think we got more stats here with another Eagle here coming up next.
Oh, that's called a lead-in, young folks, if you're trying to get into the industry here. Yes, Joseph, you are correct. Actually, this next stat is for most rushing yards per game this season, and the obvious names are at the top, 1 and 2, but then there's a curious name at 3, and then keep going, Joe.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is the third guy. So Saquon at 113, Derrick Henry at 107 right behind him, and then Joe Mixon at 95. And it's funny because people thought this would be a very high-flying offense, but it's been a little bit more of a defense and run the football situation for the Texans. And part of that is based on the injuries to Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. Like, you got to pivot at some point, right? Nico's back, luckily, so hopefully a rebound game from him. I think you will see that. He almost had it last week even, but that's the first game where he didn't go over 70 yards receiving, and he could have had that one big play actually not been called back. However, Joe Mixon, what a value he's been. Again, basically a nothing pick, and they've got Joe Mixon. So good job here by the Houston Texans as that organization continues to identify talent and make the most of every investment. I know the Diggs one hasn't gone their way, unfortunately, but I think it's great to see the Texans turn around.
All right, and this final stat, we saved the best for last here. The most receptions in a player's first 10 career games. Take a look at this list, Joe.
Yeah, fun names on here. Odell Beckham Jr. at 71, but right behind him this year, Brock Bowers. Now, last year, Puka Nacua was right here, 69. Incredible rookie season for him. Talk about league winner. But Brock Bowers as a tight end on this list. Ooh, I know they don't have a lot of talent at wide receiver. I know Devontae Adams left town. But Brock Bowers is having an incredible season. My goodness, what a fantasy action. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today, where we're talking healthy lunches and fun snacks. All kidding aside, we're taking a deep dive. Joe and I during the break. Joe's a parent. His kids are there. I'm a parent. We're talking, hey, Joe, give me some suggestions for a fun lunch, a fun thing. And Joe, God bless you, Joe. You're a great analyst. You're a great author. You're a great friend. But beyond that, dude, you're a great dad. While I go into the abyss, I want you to talk about Jameis Winston. Give me a deep dive.
It'd be fun if you could do the whole thing like you were falling whenever the screen goes down.
Believe me, I was. We all were.
I'll tell you, yesterday, did a quick little Italian wedding soup. Also a nice little soup this time of year. You make the little meatballs, you little pasta in there, you chop up the carrots and the celery and the onions, you put them in there. Huh? You know, like some of that? Make some paninis with that. There you go. All Italian lunch.
Joe,
Let's go.
You have this 6-minute segment. I'm going to be preparing for some paninis.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what you do.
Hoop, as my daughter calls it. Hoop. I want hoop, Daddy.
Hoop. Oh, hoop. See, they're adorable. You know, and then they become teenagers like my daughters, and it's still adorable, but not like that. Not like that. You know who has been adorable this year? Look at this transition. Jameis Winston. Adorable. He comes out there and he says crazy things. We're not playing for the names on the back of our jerseys. We're playing for the logos on our helmet, but they don't have a logo on their helmet. I love Jameis Winston. It's a good time. I'm not sure if he's 100% with us, but I'm 100% with him because it's fun. It's enjoyable and it's good television. And as bad as they've looked in sometimes, you have to look back and step and ask yourself now, is Jameis Winston the answer quarterback for the Cleveland Browns long-term? Well, let's do a deep dive and let's take a look at the stats. Over the 8 games he's played so far this year, he's only thrown for 1,000 yards. Now, again, the 8 games, a little sporadic there in terms of the usage, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. But 7 passing touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. Now, they do come in bunches sometimes, so you got to watch that. He does have some bad games. But it seems like the players love him, and it seems like he is such a antithesis to what was going on there with Deshaun Watson, where everything just seemed misery for not only the Browns, but for Watson too. I think you have to ask ourselves, no matter what the situation is with contracts, do we ever see Deshaun Watson again? And I think the answer is no. Now, is Dorian Thompson-Robinson the future? Maybe. Is Jameis Winston the future? It's possible. This next stretch of games is going to be really important for them going forward. What is it going to look like? Are we going to see the Cleveland Browns fold up the tents, or are they going to instead go out there and at least compete? And they showed you they were going to compete last week. Now, here's what's fun. They play Denver next week. Then they get Pittsburgh again, this time in Pittsburgh, right? So does Pittsburgh just mop the floor with them, or do they take them to their limit again? Maybe they do, maybe not. After that, they get Kansas City, also tough matchup for the Cleveland Browns, but they finish the season with Cincinnati, Miami, and then, wouldn't you know it, they go into Baltimore. And does this team that really has nothing to play for want to play spoiler down the stretch? I think they do. And I think teams like Cleveland Browns, when you have talent like Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb, and hopefully he continues to get healthier as the season goes on, all of a sudden, you know, that's like the last team that you want to see, I think, in Week 18 if you're the Baltimore Ravens and you have to win that division. So it's going to be an interesting ride. I'll ask you this. Do you think that Winston, kind of like Baker Mayfield before him, is going to find a home here in Cleveland and kind of become the new franchise quarterback? Because remember, they are hamstrung from a cap standpoint no matter what happens with Watson. So they might not have a choice. The choice might be a default. Is Winston a good default choice?
Yes is the short answer, but overall as a wagerer, I'm never long. I'm never wasting too much time thinking about next season. I'm thinking about this season. I'm thinking about what you just outlined there about the upcoming schedule and about the tenacity and temerity of this team as they assume Winston's identity. I think you got a live dog each and every week. And I honestly think if you can find nice plus numbers here and find a good way to maybe work with some points or maybe make some fun little, I never advise anything more than a 2-leg parlay unless you're getting a boost from your house. I say that all the time. You can find a nice little 2-leg parlay. You can find a live dog here with these Browns. You know, it's also looking at the Giants here as well. I think that's also a live dog considering the quarterback switch. It's a good way here, week 12 moving forward, to try to find that good plus money. We really want to pad our pockets because you know the playoffs are going to be here, alliteration aside, before we know it, Joe.
Yeah, they certainly are. It's going to be a fun playoff, no doubt about it. And remember, we're not quite done yet here with the NFL season, so don't write off the Pittsburgh Steelers yet. Well, I'm just saying, don't write off the 49ers quite yet either. I know, as much as I will tell you, like, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. It feels a lot like the Eagles of last year. Remember? The Eagles of last year, they got into the playoffs. They limped into the playoffs, and they were out in the first round. I don't know if anybody's going to really handle their business in the West, but that's a big game today, too. Arizona, Seattle. We'll keep a close eye on that. Hour 2 coming up. We've got the starts, the sits, the waiver wire. We got everything, and the fantasy props. Don't go anywhere. We're going to make you some fantasy money when we return for hour 2.